Welcome to Daily Life Connection as we continue to explore who God is, how He works, and what difference that makes in the way that we live. You know, as we've been working through these things about who God is, it has made me again realize how skewed our vision of God often has been by religious tradition and cultural traditions. And we haven't taken time to examine, are the things that we believe about God actually true in the light of who Jesus is? And I think everything has to be about God has to be viewed through Jesus, because He said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Jesus, Hebrews, it tells us He's the exact representation of God. And so everything about who God is has to be seen through that lens. Well, today I want to talk to us about the name of God, the I Am. In Exodus chapter 3, of course, God is talking to Moses in the burning bush, and He says, I want you to go to Egypt and lead my people out to freedom. And Moses said, who am I going to say sent me? And God says, I am who I am. Tell them that's who sent you. I know that name I am, it's difficult. It's mysterious, isn't it? It isn't like a defining characteristic of what God is. And yet, wrapped up in that is an incredible truth about who God is. One of the problems that we have as human beings is our culture, and sadly even sometimes our churches, have emphasized I am not. You're not good enough, you're not old enough, you're not smart enough, you're not theologically trained enough, you aren't, all of those kinds of things, until we become I am nots. We become sort of the sum of who we aren't, of our failures, our shortcomings, and we get focused on those. And we see that in Exodus with Moses, because Moses says, I'm not a great man of speech, and nobody knows who I am, and I don't know if I, constantly he's saying, I'm not enough, and God is saying, I am. I am. In these times of stress that we're going through right now in our lives, it's easy, isn't it, to get focused on the I am not. I'm not strong enough to get through this. I'm not dealing with this well. I'm not on top of this whole isolation thing. I'm not at peace about it. I don't have a remedy for this. I'm not good at this. Isn't it amazing? I mean, you can fill in the blanks today too, can't you? I'm sure you could sit down and write a whole lot of lists. I am not. I'm not young enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not righteous enough. I'm not faithful enough. I'm not. Just, we can list it out. Now, here's my point today. Jesus says, I'm in you, the Father's in me. In other words, the great I am is in you and me. He is in us. So every time that we are tempted to identify ourselves or label ourselves according to the I am nots, every time you catch yourself today saying, well, I'm not, I encourage you to remember God says, but I am. So that when I say, I'm not strong enough, God says, I am. When I say, I'm not smart enough to figure this all out, God says, I am. When I feel like I'm just anxious about this, I'm not at peace, God says, I am. Now, we can look at that and immediately feel like, oh yeah, that's God. He's got it all together and I don't, and that just makes me feel even worse. We need to stop that and remember the key thing that Jesus said, I'm in you. I'm in you. Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He and I are one. and I'm in you. The I am is in you. I am everything I need in order to live well this day. That's what God is saying to us, isn't it? I am everything that is necessary to living life to the full. I am everything that makes life rich and deep and a great adventure. I am. I am all those things. In James, we read, every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of light, the great I am, everything that makes for life rich and significant and to the full. So when you are feeling today like, I'm not enough for that, remember who lives in you. The great I am lives in you. Well, let's think about this today. And like I say, every time we try to identify ourselves or label ourselves by I am not, remember that deep inside you resides I am. God bless you as you think about this today. We'll talk again tomorrow.